Hey, welcome back to the Relentless Positivity Podcast. I got a very special guest here, my friend Marcie over here. So I have this memo, this bio memorized right here. I'm not going to look down at my paper. So she's a Huntsville native, Grissom alum like myself. So she had a passion for helping the less fortunate. It's something she's done throughout her whole life. She's a senior managing consultant with PFM Financial Advisors. She has a BA in psychology, but she uses that a lot at boot camp. She's got a minor in business administration from Converse College in Spartanburg, South Carolina. She's formed and served on several boards in efforts to help others with that. She likes exercise, especially mountain climbers, what I hear. She loves the outdoors. She loves traveling. She's married to her amazing husband, the chocolate teddy bear, Donald. So he's an awesome dude. If you've ever met him, you got to meet him. I also share a 17-year-old son, Ethan. Marcie, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. So I mentioned you served on several boards. So one you're serving on now is NOMA, Not One More Alabama. So can you tell me a little bit more about what you do for there?
Yeah, Not One More is a volunteer-based organization that started 4 or 5 years ago, just basically around supporting the community of people that have loved ones struggling with substance use disorder, providing resources, education, Narcan distribution. And I got involved last year as a board member, serving in the role of CFO treasurer, so that I'm helping keep the financials in order and get some new systems in place with my experience on other boards. And it's been really rewarding so far.
Well, that's cool. So we'll talk about kind of what you guys have going on right now, a special event coming up. We'll get into that later, but I want to talk a little bit about your sister, Sam. So that's kind of how you got involved in the board in the first place. So tell me a little bit about Sam.
Sam was my baby sister. There are 3 girls. I'm the oldest, and Samantha was 11 years younger than me, 9 years younger than my other sister. And so she was our real life baby doll. 11 and 9-year-old girls get a little sister. They treat her like a baby doll. So she had a whole lot of mamas and was very spoiled and just a fun baby to be around. Unfortunately, she always kind of struggled with her mental health, and none of us really knew what to do about that at the time. It was the late 80s, early 90s, and we didn't properly recognize it, I guess. And it was something that she always struggled with. And then in her later life, after she went to college, became a nurse, she started struggling with addiction. We think related to kind of self-medicating her mental health issues. And we did everything we could to helped her go through rehab several times. For a while, when I was a single mom, she lived with me and helped me out while she was going through recovery. And so we helped each other out, really. She helped me with Ethan in the house, and decided to go to grad school and was doing well with that. And she had a major life tragedy. Lost her boyfriend, who she was madly in love with, and she just never really recovered from it. She already was kind of a fragile person, is how I would describe her mentally. She attempted to get help, but just could never really bring herself out of it. And it was very difficult for us to watch. It's hard to watch someone who feels hopeless, and you try to help them as much as you can, but we aren't medical professionals, and sometimes you're just too close to it. So eventually that she graduated from UAH with her master's degree in information systems, and wasn't sure what to do next. And so she kind of isolated herself and just went to a very bad place, and eventually got hooked on heroin, and we got her back into rehab a couple of times, but it was just never successful for her. She just couldn't bring herself to really understand what her underlying issues were, and how she really needed to help. And she kind of expected us to do it for her a lot, because I think we did a lot for her. And unfortunately, on June 13th of 2019, we got the call that everyone who has a loved one struggling with addiction fears on a daily basis, that she had overdosed and had been found dead in her home. And that's been really what catapulted me to figure out what to do to turn that into a positive, because it was such a heart-wrenching experience that no one should ever have to go through.
Right. Yeah. So when did you first started kind of seeing the symptoms that maybe something was going on, that she may have had some trouble with addiction? Kind of what were the first symptoms you saw with her?
She stayed up all night, slept all day, which was not that unusual for her, but it got to where you couldn't really get her to participate. She really isolated herself and avoided family functions. And anyone that knows me and my mom and my sisters were all very close, and we, spend a lot of time together. And she's kind of quit doing that. She became very defensive all the time, didn't want anyone's advice, didn't want anyone to help her, and started stealing money. She wrecked her car and did not handle that properly. We started noticing that she was going into debt, stealing checks, things like that. And we really weren't, you live in denial because you don't want to believe the truth. And actually in 2018 on Mother's Day, my mother found her passed out. And that's when we realized that she had really moved on to IV drug use, and that we really had a problem.
Yeah, I can't imagine. So when you're in that situation, what do you do? Like, what did you guys do? I mean, obviously it's different for every situation. What do you guys, like, you tried to help her. What did you do?
Well, we sat her down and said, this is unacceptable behavior, and, set our boundaries and said, we will help you get help, but we're not going to give you money. We're not going to support anything that we think is going to enable your habit. We'll figure out how to get you into treatment and support you in every way with that. I had a counselor that I went to more frequently at that time to, help me work through it. But it's one of those things that really takes over your life. Addiction is a family disease. And when someone that you're that close with is struggling with it, you struggle with it just as much, because you constantly worry. Your suspicions are on high alert. You never know when you're going to get that phone call. And so we banded together and tried to support her, but she was very resistant. And, we had to say, well, if this is what you're going to do, you can't live here anymore. She was living in my mom's house. And if you want to get better, then you can live here. So she decided that, I could go on and on, but eventually she moved in with a guy who was a drug dealer, and I completely isolated herself from us. And we would only hear from her occasionally if she needed something or wanted something. And it was very, very, very frustrating.
Yeah. So you've been going through the grieving process. Obviously, that's different for everybody else. So kind of how have you, obviously joining NOMA was one of the things you've probably done to kind of get back and help someone avoid this whole situation. But what all have you done to go through the whole grieving process with this?
Well, I got to say, at first I slept and ate a lot. It was,
yeah.
I think we've all dealt with grief, but the grief of losing someone that close to you is different. There's just no description for it whatsoever. And even though you're not terribly surprised, that doesn't make it any better. And I was ill-equipped to deal with it. I spent a lot of time with my mom and my sister, my other sister, and, we tried to help each other through it. But what really turned it around for me was Not One More did a weekend-long grief workshop through a grant that they got. And it was the first of its kind in Huntsville, the first time they'd ever done it. And we were fortunate enough to be able to sign up for that. And it was out at the Vision Ministry. I don't know if you've ever been out there, but it's a beautiful place. Especially for something like that. And it was just a group of other people who had lost loved ones to addiction. And we had great counselors there with us that worked through Friday night, all day Saturday, Sunday afternoon. We could have stayed on campus if we wanted to, and honestly, we should have. But to be able to be in a community with that support of people who have been through exactly what you've been through, and then work through a grief program, that was really cut out for this particular experience. It changed my life. And through that, I met with Patty Sixtus, the president of Not One More, during a lunch one day. I mean, they provided us all our food, and I mean, it was just fantastic. And I said, I've got to get involved. There has to be something that I can do to give back to this organization that really made me realize. And what it made me do is learn how to live with grief. Grief is not something that goes away. They say, oh, it gets better with time. It doesn't get better. You just learn to live with it. It becomes part of who you are. And the longer it goes on, the less it comes on sporadically. You kind of learn when to expect it, although not always. Sometimes it just still hits you out of the blue. But we wrote letters to our loved one, apologizing for things we felt like we did wrong, and forgiving them for things that we felt like they did wrong to us, and just worked through every bit of that process. And it was seriously life-changing. And with that, after that, I was able to get back to what my normal coping mechanism, which is exercise. But in those first few months, I could barely get out of bed. I mean, it was pretty rough.
Yeah, because I mean, you have guilt because we've all been through where I should have done this and I should have done that, and there's no guarantee that any of that would have made a difference, but you just still kick yourself. And so to go through that, and we've talked about it before we came on and started recording, that there's a stigma about having a loved one who's an addict. Nobody likes to talk about it, but the stats show out that nearly half of us have a loved one that's addicted. So we don't like to talk about it, but hey, if we help each other out, that's how we defeat this thing, right? It doesn't need to leave it, like you talked about earlier. Isolation is where it grows. So having that group, it's amazing. So that's a huge difference. Through the grieving process, it's not just all the drug stuff, but when something happens, what about the family? So the NOMA's taking care of them as well. So that's really cool.
Very much so. And I think what that people need to really realize about addiction is that it is a disease. It's like cancer, it's like heart disease, anything else. It's a disease of the brain. No one plans to become an addict. And there's some very interesting neuroscience out there as to why some people become addicted and some people don't. You've met people that have tried all sorts of things and not become addicted. Right. And then other people try it one time and they're addicted for life. So if you ever get the chance to go to Tim Hilton's Addicted Brain seminar, NOMA's had him come in a few times, and we might do a Zoom or a virtual presentation of that. It is fascinating, and it really gives you a good understanding of what addiction does to your brain, and some compassion for the person that's suffering with it, because they don't want to live that life, but your brain just doesn't give you a choice. It's not a character flaw.
Yeah, that's what we need to understand, right? Because that's a huge misunderstanding. People are like, oh, you think they want to live like that and be miserable? Yeah. And it's just, we get so frustrated, I think, when you have a loved one, you're just like, why don't you just fix yourself? That's not how it works. So, right. So it's frustrating on both ends. So I think it's very important to understand. So with, obviously we're in a pandemic. How has that had an effect on addiction overall?
Well, relapses and overdoses have increased a lot. And a lot of that is a result of the isolation that's come from social distancing and not being around people. Support meetings have had to go virtual. A lot of people aren't comfortable with that. Right. And the opposite of addiction is community. And people that are in recovery and just coming out of recovery really need that sense of community and people that they feel like been through the same things as them, and they can talk to and they can understand, and that makes it very difficult for someone to stay in recovery, especially if they're new in recovery. And so we've seen a lot of people that have relapsed or have overdosed, even more so than prior to the pandemic, and it's very, very unfortunate.
So with everything going on, how has NOMA been affected during COVID? What's your biggest challenge right now you guys are facing?
I mean, I think it's the same thing, the lack of community. We try to bring people together to to be able to support each other. And we had to cancel our End Heroin Huntsville walk that we usually have in August of every year, which is a great way to bring people together with the resources that they need, celebrate recovery, mourn those losses together. And we bring people in for educational events. The grief workshop had to go virtual, so that was a little bit difficult, because it was only the second year we were supposed to have it. And so that has been difficult, but we also have a discovery room. I don't know if you've ever seen that before, but it's this trailer that we bring out to events, and we take it to schools and different places. And as a parent, it's a great place to walk through, because it kind of shows you, it's like a teenager's room. And here's all the ways here's all the ways they can hide their paraphernalia or whatever the case may be. It's really fascinating, but it's a small space. So clearly we can't do that. So we can't provide those resources. We have a parent coach program where people are trained to be a coach to a parent or a loved one of someone in active addiction, and talk to them and work through it. And that had to go virtual as well. But we've overcome it in a lot of ways by trying to reach out to people virtually. And I think we've widened our audience in that way, because we can invite people from, not just North Alabama. And we've gotten a lot of partnerships from other organizations across the state that we've partnered with on some events, and just tried to still connect people the best way that we can.
Yeah. So I know it's a tough job. So you see people, they're still going to be overdosed. People that have been in the programs and stuff like that. So what keeps you inspired to keep on going when it's, you have these tragedies happen and it can beat you down? So what keeps you inspired to keep on going?
The success stories. Every success story, whether they're getting their 1 month chip or they're celebrating 18 years of recovery, it's possible and everyone can do it. And I see people that I know that are, struggling and coming out of it on the other end a better person. It just, if we can help one person and one family not have to deal with that loss or deal with that constant stress of loving someone in active addiction, then it's worth it. And seeing people come around to understanding it better and reducing that stigma.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, we tend to focus on the negative, right? When things come up, you're like, oh my gosh, we lost all these people. But think about all the people you've saved too. And like you said, if you could just save one family from what you guys have to go through, that's huge. So if you could tell a family member of an addicted person anything right now, what would you say to them right now, someone who's gone through this?
Give yourself grace. And give your loved one grace. I mean, we're all struggling right now, more than usual. And set your boundaries, but give yourself grace. Say the serenity prayer. Say it every day. Say it every minute. Remind yourself what you can control and what you can't control, and reach out and find support for yourself, because addiction is a family disease, and it's very easy to get caught up in it and let it rule your life. And that no one's going to heal in that case.
That's great advice. Just controlling what you can control. That's really all you can do. I mean, we worry about all these things that are out of control, and that's what drives you crazy. So that's great advice. So let's talk about the scavenger hunt. So you guys had to cancel your walk, and obviously we can't get large groups together. So you guys came up with something different. So what are you guys doing instead?
Yeah, I think this is going to be really cool. We are doing an End Addiction Huntsville Hunt for Hope. And it's a virtual scavenger hunt, and not completely virtual, but it's app based. And we're asking organizations to sponsor and people to form teams. I think it's $25 a team member. And then the sponsorships will go to pay for t-shirts and cash prizes. The team that comes in first place can win $750. Second place is $500, and third place is $250. And it's going to be a way for people to go out on their own instead of bringing everyone together, but still get connected to those resources. Because a lot of our resource organizations will be participating in some way, and certain things will have points based on sponsorship levels. So if McDonald's were a sponsor, and they could say, okay, well, come take a picture in front of our sign for 50 points or whatever the case may be. And the teams can kind of go out on their own during the times February 26th and 27th and record everything in the app as they get around, to different places. A lot of it's still in the works as to what those places will be and how that will work, but it's a really cool way to do it. And then we'll still have a table set up at Big Spring Park like we do for the walk, and we'll be giving out Narcan, which is a huge part of our mission. UAB Family Medicine administers that for us, or administers that program for us, and we will be reserving enough Narcan for everyone that's registered as a team member. And then if we have any left over, then we'll schedule another event to give that out, because we don't want that sitting on the shelf. That needs to be in the hands of
Right.
the people.
Not gonna help anybody sitting on the shelf, right? So
yeah,
with
yeah,
the team, how big are these
anything.
teams? How big are the teams? 1 to 3? Is that
Probably
what?
1 to 3 people.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could be a larger team if you wanted to, but you're going to be driving around, to these different places. So, I guess depends on how many people fit in your car.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm still figuring out what I'm doing at my station. I'm sure there's gonna be squats involved, but I'm gonna figure it out. So it should be an awesome. That's it's got to be right. So
yeah.
So what does the app do? Do you just upload your picture on there? How do you use the app?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure about that. I haven't. We have somebody else in charge of that, but your team will be registered within the app, and then it will have everything loaded as to how many points certain things are, and you can check in, and there might be requirements to check in somewhere on social media. And share that within the app, and we'll learn more as we go. This is all very new for us, but if it goes well, we might do it again, because it seems like it's going to be a lot of fun.
It sounds like fun. I'm excited to be a part of it. We'll figure it out and make it fun. But thank you so much for coming on. And just like your mission at NOMA, if one person gets something out of this and they get help, then it's all been worth it. So thank you so much for sharing your story. I know it's tough to come on here and talk about it, what you've gone through and all that, but you're helping people. So thank you so much for being on here.
Thank you for having me, and thanks for sponsoring.
Oh, absolutely. We're looking forward to it. We'll get the word. I'll put all the stuff in show notes, all the links and all that stuff to be a sponsor. You want to be a sponsor. It's going to be a cool event and take part. So I'll link all that, as well as NOMA's website. You got to go check them out. It'll break your heart when you go on there and you see the pictures of the people on there. Man, they're not what you think you look like. It's people that live right next door to you. Mm-hmm. It's everybody from all shapes, sizes, and backgrounds. Go on there and you'll see why this mission is so important. So thank you so much for what you guys are doing.
Thank you, Joe.
All right, we'll see you, Marcie. Y'all go check out that race. Check out the links. I'll see you later.